Hello, welcome to today's podcast episode. We've got a bit of a different one today. It's all about overcoming burnout through experiential learning with horses with the amazing Melissa Duniam. Now, Melissa and I go way back. We first met Melissa back in 2017 when she reached out for functional medicine, healing, and support. So, Melissa, in the first part of this episode, shares her most extraordinary story of overcoming body burnout and the patterns of doing everything for everyone else to the detriment of her health. She touches on what it was like to work with me from a functional medicine perspective as well. And the other half of today's episode is really looking at, now that she is feeling well and happy and aligned in herself and in her life, how she has then turned that into helping other women in leadership discover their authentic selves and get out of survival coping patterns using the assistance of horses. So I was lucky enough to go to one of Melissa's experiential workshops back in March, I think it was. So in the podcast episode, I also share my own experience of what it was like working with the horses, the patterns that arose during times of uncertainty in that workshop, and what I learned about myself. It was a really incredible and really special and sacred experience that I had with Melissa. So it was so lovely to be supported by her after many years of me and us supporting her in her journey. So a little bit more about Melissa Duniam. She is a mum, a wife, a farmer, a friend, and founder facilitator of Leading Rein, a holistic approach to personal and professional development workshops, a signature 3-day deep dive for women who want to stop being so busy and start prioritizing themselves guilt-free. Melissa's award-winning framework combines human behavior insights, personal profiling, and experiential activities working alongside horses. So even if you're a horse person or not, you are going to love this episode, and I think you'll just love Melissa too. She is such a beautiful woman with so much wisdom.
Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in. Welcome everybody to this episode of the Ending Body Burnout Show. We have a special guest on this episode. We've got Melissa Duniam. Welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Philly, for having me.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. We have known each other for, I don't even know how long now, maybe 7 years?
Probably longer.
Yeah. So we're super excited to have you on the podcast for many different reasons. One, that we're going to talk about how you help other burnt out women in leadership, and my own experience with doing some work with you and your horses, which I'm super excited to dig into because there's so many different gold nuggets and learnings around that. But also you and I connected, way back when you had your own health journey going on, which
I think it would have been around 2017, I reckon.
Yeah. Are you happy to dive in there? Let's just go straight to the personal stuff, because this will then move nicely into why you do what you now do.
Yeah. So I guess if you were to ask the question for me with my own body burnout, when were things failing and when were things going on, It's probably rewind right back to when this young hairdressing mum married a farmer. So in 2004, my husband Richard and I, we married. We'd been together a couple of years before that. But it honestly just felt like I was a kid that then jumped into a marriage and jumped into having kids, and then kind of landed into buying a business, like a third generation family farm. When his mum got sick, it was full on. It just felt like it happened overnight. So there was just this succession of ongoing things, from being a child to having to grow up and be an adult that was really a kid raising kids at the same time
Yeah,
as
wow.
marrying another kid. Hopefully that's relatable to many people. It just feels like there's so much that's happening in that stage and that phase of life as well. So that was 2004. It was only a couple of years in for us. 2006, for people that are in business and more commodity-based businesses as well, 2006 was the GFC, so the financial crisis that happened, the crash. So for us, it was the next 10 years were literally felt like we were just surviving to get ahead and keep this business afloat as well. So we were constantly chasing our tails and catching up. 2016 I'd say is the point that it all fell apart for me. The industry had some things going on. That was the Gary Halou saga, for those that know the milk industry as well. So we were running skeleton crews across 4 farms at that point. We didn't have managers on those farms. It was staff, it was rosters, it was just navigating people everywhere. And I was still on the home farm that Richard and I started on. And I was rushing ahead this particular day to feed calves, thinking about the kids back at home, how I'll just do that first. I'll go and put the kids on the bus after that. But no one knew where I was either, because it wasn't usual routine. And I was thinking about a wedding that I was matron of honour in that coming weekend, and just thinking, how am I going to navigate all of that with all of this stuff? Got to the paddock, and I had a text message from one of our staff members on the home farm, and she basically sent me a message and said I quit effectively immediately. And that point, I remember just saying it out loud, bloody hell, I need a break. And that is what I got that day. So in that calf paddock, I had a pretty significant accident. I rolled the farm buggy. I'd crushed, or I was trapped underneath it. My leg was caught, or both legs were caught. And it was just luck for me. The phone that was in the cup holder landed in front of me. So I was on all fours on the ground with it across me. So I could ring Richard and let him know. But from that point, it was in a dirty calf paddock with 80 calves hanging around me, bellowing, wondering what had happened. And there was the kids and Richard and stuff. But this became a point where it just became a succession of clusters of chaos in my life. That was a good couple of years of recovery. It was a compound fracture to one of those legs. I ended up with infections that just wouldn't heal. But I guess in that process as well, there was like 18 months, 2 years of intermittent IV antibiotics that were happening as well. I had a long time, Philly, to sit on my butt in nothing but my own company in that time, without all of the usual daily distractions that I could go and busy myself in on the farm. So it was a real reality wake-up call for me to realise that I was so wrapped up in all of my responsibilities and all of my roles that I didn't actually know who I was underneath it all. And I started to go into scarcity mindset and survival strategies of, how can I fix this thing? Like, how can I fix this problem that I've created with this break? And doing it again in a survival state with no resources and no tools. So I started to ruminate in that as well. And there was one particular point sitting in that chair, and by the way, I threw that recliner, never to be seen again. But I had a friend come and visit me with her kids. Exactly, Chris. And I was watching a TV show. I didn't watch TV normally. Didn't seem to have time for that. So I watched the show, and it triggered something within me. I'd watched a death play out, and I just broke down. Like I just started crying and I could not stop. It ended up being like a 24-hour period that I was just in this state. And I had a friend come and visit me when I was in this place, in my most vulnerable place. And she looked at me and she went, "Oh, Melissa, what's going on? What's wrong?" All I could come back with is, what is effing right about this whole thing? The whole thing just felt like a mess, internally and externally for me. I'd lost my identity. I'd lost control. It had just hit that point where the body symptoms as well just started to manifest and flare up. I had indigestion that was forever. I'd wake up in the middle of the night having these panic sweats and waking up in worry. My brain was looking for things to worry about as well. So it was like it was doing a checklist of, oh my gosh, there's something really significant going on here. Had the body aches and chronic fatigue systems. I had menopausal symptoms as well back then. I had the leg bone not healing. I think the most significant thing for me was I had monthly night terrors that were popping up, and they were so cyclic. They were just happening at the end of the month, and it was pretty horrific things that stayed with me for a few days. So I'd talk about it and I'd say to my family how bad it was and how terrible these things were. And I just physically watched family members pass away in front of me.
Wow.
So I went and saw a GP, and she actually is a functional medicine practitioner as well. And when I was explaining to her, she was like, "Oh, darling, that's PTSD." And again, in this state, I felt the instant thing that come up for me was shame. I was like, "Oh gosh, no. That's something that Vietnam veterans get. That's not something that somebody that rolls a farm buggy gets." Like the denial and the understanding really and the empathy for myself, it wasn't there. So for me, that was my rock bottom. It was also my breakdown, and my body was starting to break down too. But I did realize, if we look at the hope at the end of these things, is that I just knew that this wasn't the version of a break that I wanted for myself, and it definitely wasn't something that I deserved. So that kind of just took me into the exploration stages, but it was still in a scarcity mindset of what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Wanted a break, but you got to break down instead.
And a break of the leg.
A break of the leg. And where, there's the crash out there, the financial crash, the dairy farm crash. I don't know specifically what you were referring to with regards to the saga that you were talking about before, but I'll Google it after. But the industry, the world, and then the little red buggy crash. Mel's identity started to break, hit rock bottom, broke down. You wanted a break, but you started breaking down. And sometimes if you're like everybody else, we can kind of think, what the is happening? Why is this happening to me? Yeah. Thank you.
The universe was working in your favor. It just had to slam you a few times because it's like, she is not listening. Okay, I have to give her something else.
But it doesn't feel like
something else.
It's like, this is care. This feels like abuse. This feels like an assault.
So when you started turning the corner, for want of a better word, so it's like you started working on getting to the root cause from a scarcity mindset first, which I think, by the way, is normal. Like a lot of people experience body burnout, chronic health issues, life breakdown, and it doesn't feel good, and we're just wired to move away from pain. So it's like, quick, got to fix the thing, don't want this anymore. So that is often where people start, and then along the journey, most people, when they get to the other side, they'll find wisdom in that as well, where it's actually like, oh, I'm not running away from pain anymore. This is actually a really lovely thing to do for myself. So what did it look like for you in terms of your healing journey? And also, in our practice, and you would know, we're all about the root cause. Like, what's the root cause? What's happening like deep beneath the surface?
So I think no one thing, but a major root cause, key driver was the relationship that I didn't have with myself. I think that was the core internal driver, and that is sometimes, most commonly, something that we don't care to look at, we don't think to look at. And I'd lost myself because I was so far removed from who I truly was. So my identity was, I was just so wrapped up in all of my roles and the responsibilities, the being for others, the farmer's wife, the gap filler, the mum, that I just completely overrode what had mattered to me.
Yeah.
So I'd normalized living in this survival mode, and I'd learned patterns of self-neglect along the way as well. I think the other part where wisdom comes in is I didn't have emotional maturity. I didn't have anyone to teach. None of us do until we hit critical point, it seems.
Yeah.
To really teach us about emotional flexibility and how it's so important to put ourselves first, put ourselves up the top of that priority list. But the key element that I was learning was you can do it, but it's really, really hard to do it guilt-free. So I'd really placed my personal power in the hands of everything else outside of me. One of them was the health system that I was in. I trusted that they would put me as best interest. But I soon noticed later on with that wisdom that I was probably a bit of a too hard basket. So I become a bit of a crash test dummy, literally. And the language that I was kind of hearing through there is, oh, that's interesting. Let's wait and see. And that became, I say I'm a slow learner sometimes, but that was also the system that I was sitting in, was just wait and see. So it kind of was dismissive through that process as well. So I think it was the strategies, but I think it was mostly that self-relationship that I didn't have a quality relationship with myself as well. So after that conversation to feeling, when we talk about healing, healing's always a work in progress. Things always pop up, no matter the different levels and stages that we hit through life as well. They'll always bring up some of those flavors. But after that conversation with the GP, she did assign me to I think I had 10 weeks with talk therapy. Talk therapy was okay, but I can mask really well because I can talk so well. And I think for me, it just felt like I'm talking again. I'm not kind of really, I do remember I went in on the first day, I said, you can label me, you can tell me I've got PTSD, bipolar, I don't care what it is, I just need tools. And I look back.
Just fix me.
After all of that, and I did say to her, how hilarious and how common, no doubt, that you've probably heard that before as well.
Yeah.
But for me, talk therapy alone, I'm a kinesthetic style learner as well. I'm a heavy feeler. I'm highly emotional being. I didn't have the knowledge at that time, so I did keep going, but I never really truly felt like I healed from the talk therapy alone. And that is when I saw, it must have been on social media, that Philly's practice had opened up, which was Happy Biome back then. It was around late 2017 from memory. And what really appealed to me, Philly, was the marketing message around tackling health with this holistic approach, because that's what I felt was happening. I was being compartmentalized in systems only for that part. And I do remember my surgeon said to me at one point there, he said, first we heal your body, like we heal that leg, and then you might need to heal your mind. But that was it. That was all he said in a passing comment. And it made it no relevance to me. Like, it didn't make any sense at that time. And I was just like, oh, right, okay. But I remember that first consult, Philly, and I'm not sure if I ever told you this, and it has really only come up in my reflection of coming and jumping on with you today. My hubby was in the car with me the day that I had the first consult, and I remember speaking to you and just feeling like I was being heard and I was being validated, and I knew I had to make a commitment of some sort to myself, 4 for that personal relationship. And I realized the scarcity mindset that was happening. So, and financially, that's a thing as well. And no doubt that's common for a lot of women. So I did something that I wouldn't normally do, and I said, let's just go whole hog.
You did.
Let's do that. We do the full lot, because I'm not messing around, because this is messing with me. And I remember getting in the car, and Richard looked at me and he just went, Melissa, you always give up. And it hit really
Ouch.
hard. And it hit hard because when things would get hard, I'd find another thing to do. So part of it was him speaking his experience of how he saw me through his own lens and his truth, but it was also partially truth of mine as well. And somewhere in there, I dug in and I found my stubborn streak. And I just thought, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, this is for you. And by making that financial investment, I think that is what I showed up fully committed for the thing as well. So I think that played a really key part for me, just kind of digging in with that. But again, him saying that too is I interpreted that as if I was failing, and I'd felt that pattern with that, Melissa, what's wrong? What's going on, when I'm sitting at my most vulnerable too in that chair. So I was starting to see these repetitions of things that were coming up for me. So yeah, I'd finally made this significant investment. It was not something that was for anyone else, but I knew that my future self would thank me for this.
Yeah.
So we did run an absolute gamut of tests.
Looked at all the body systems, or most of them.
And I think the biggest significant thing for me really was the gut. Candida in the gut. I had the same named bacteria or bug that was happening and presenting in my leg. Was in insane levels in my gut as well.
Wow.
It was adrenal fatigue. I was just this hot mess living in this burnout, and my body system was absolutely shot. I do remember how overwhelming it was, because it was all new information for me, and it was just all new levels of awareness. So I did take it slow and steady. I had a lot of stuff to unpack through that, and still living in this environment that didn't rest.
Yeah.
And then bring in new tools or new resources that are available to us out there as well. So I was really mindful that I was entering that space too. Another part to that was when I worked with Joe, who was the kinesiologist that was working from your practice at that point as well.
Joe.
Yeah. Joe.
Yay.
Yeah.
I've run into Joe a couple of times, which is so lovely. But the combination of both, Philly, I think for me, was when somebody going to talk therapy that's really great at talking, but he's also a feeler. When Joe asked me a couple of questions that my body was signaling to her that she could kind of help me guide, it was an unlocking of Pandora's box in the second session. I've never experienced anything like that before, because so much came to the surface for me that I just built all of these coping strategies around it. I dug them in deep somewhere and just completely dismissed, and I stopped showing them to myself, and that was my way of coping with that. So it just kind of, I realized that I was just seeking these external validations or solutions outside of myself. Like I was just outsourcing my value, my power, and I wasn't honoring my intuition. And I think that those sessions with Joe really helped me to recognize that we do suppress our own intuitive hits as well. As I said, the thing that needed the most attention was my relationship with myself. So I got really clear of what was going on there. Chris, I think I had a session with you at some point in there as well. And that was when I was still in the fix me stage. I just want somebody to say the right thing and then I'll be okay. But what was happening for me was that those patterns and strategies, that they'd serve their purpose. Somewhere along the line, they'd keep me safe, they'd done their thing, but they were now outdated, or they needed some sort of upgrade too. So that investment in me, it was really to expand myself and stop making life all about the farm and the family and being in business and other people's feedback and opinion of me as well, So I just continued to just take baby steps as well. I went to a couple of development workshops and events on the mainland. We didn't have personal and professional development events commonly, I guess. Back then we did have social media, but it just wasn't marketed online at that point. So finding them on the mainland was a lot easier for me. I learned more about my own leadership styles and my own capabilities and my own superpowers. And that was great because it started to show trust points to myself as well. And that I needed validating for myself, not outside of myself as well. But I think the biggest part that kind of brought it all together for me at that point was the amount of time that I spent outside in nature, not in that chair, when I could, in nature, and working with my horses. So I'd done endurance for 6-7 years, I guess, before then, like from a riding perspective and a training perspective, but I couldn't ride the horses anymore. So I had to find a new way of kind of navigating that relationship. But I'd always felt like it was, it needed to be a mutual relationship. It wasn't just me using horses as a tool kind of thing. They were the most powerful teachers for me. They were the most powerful source of feedback for me that I've ever experienced, more honest than any human could be in that. And just by spending time with them in that new way, it just really helped me to see where I was living my life out of alignment, who I truly was without all of those roles and all those responsibilities. But it more so, it consistently encouraged me to start that new chapter that included me. And I think that was so raw, it was so real, but it was also a more regulated version of me when I was working with those horses as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So cool. We'll move into the horses and what you do with your business, Leading Rein, in a secchi. But I just thank you for sharing like your experience of the first consult, because as you were sharing that, I'm like, I remember you were in pain and I could see all the patterns that you were playing, but also what I saw was a very intuitive and wise woman. Like, I don't know if you felt it then, but it was like it was there always. And now, you know, I came to your workshop. Was that last month or a couple of months ago? And you held space for me, and I was just like I saw you back then in 2017. It's just that there are all these other parts of you that were so much louder, you know, and it's interesting when someone's quite an intuitive person and then you've cut that relationship with self, it's going to show off in a very loud way. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's essentially like just squashing down the authentic part of you. Yeah. So for those, can you give like I've obviously read your, obviously for the listeners, I've read your bio at the start in terms of what you do now to help other women. Can you give your own spiel in terms of what Leading Rein is about, and why you use horses? I think you touched on it there before in terms of what you learnt about yourself and that connection with your horses. But yeah, this is a very different framework for personal development that I don't think many of our listeners have probably heard about.
Yeah. And I guess the backstory of what I just went through is really those experiences became the why behind the work that I do. So that idea of, I just kind of sat on it. The idea of being able to share my horses in a way with other people that isn't a traditional riding style or traditional working with them way. And for people who haven't necessarily interacted with horses before either, I mean, it's great too if you are somebody that has horse experience, because you most likely have never worked with your own horse in the way that you'll come and work with my horses as well. But finding a way to wrap it up in that personal and that professional development, because with the 20 odd years in business and the 20 odd years of working or watching teams and seeing things kind of play out, but also, as you just mentioned, being able to hold a space for people, I knew that that was my superpower. And I just didn't know how I could bring that out fully. So, but I knew that there was something in there with the horses as well, because I knew it wasn't exclusive to me. So I just kept chipping away and learning these new skills. And like I said, working through and uncovering my own potential and the opportunities that kind of presented. But I wanted my next chapter to complement the natural strengths that I had. So my personality, my qualities, and also building more resourceful energy management strategies. And I mean that from a personal level, like my own self person, not somebody else's management strategies, who I was innately, and not stay stuck in that scarcity mindset. Because if I stayed in the scarcity mindset, then no one would get to experience my superpowers. I'd be in the dairy milking the cows. I'd be rearing calves. Like, that's not where I'm going to shine my best, because people and space and building that connection through a community is what lights me up. And with the herd, I knew that there's something that I could do with that, because I loved it. And I mean, I love my family and I love being able to do things for them as well, but I wanted to be able to present myself knowing in my mind's eye and noticing those qualities that there had to be a way that I could capitalize on this beyond that traditional sense as well. So you can call it, I don't know, the entrepreneurial spirit, or being stubborn again, that I wasn't going to go and work for somebody else's 9 to 5 in that process and build their dreams. I just knew my best work and my best service wasn't milking cows and kind of filling in the gaps and reconciling those accounts in the office as well. Again, I'm happy to do those things, but it needs to be a balance. And I didn't have the balance. It was just all heavily tilted into that scarcity mindset that this is what you've got to do. When you're there, when you don't have the tools and the resources, it just feels like such a slog as well. And I can make sense of this now, again, with that wisdom and that time. I really understand why I was feeling unfulfilled and why there was just such a dichotomy in my values, because I wasn't filling my cup at all in that. So in 2021, my hubby put a purchase offer in on the property that we're at now. So we call this home. We moved from the family farm, which was, as I mentioned, the 3rd generation farm. We'd been there for 20 plus years. We've moved down the road about 10 Ks, about 10 minutes away, and there's this really old equestrian centre that was built with this facility on it. And so, Richard put an offer in, and the owner was pretty keen to move it on, because it had sat, not derelict, but it sat stale for 10 odd years, I think. Millabina has a population of 80 people, Philly. It's got an annual rainfall of a metre. So we live in this rain band area. It's not an ideal location in terms of raising kids. It feels isolated. But I'd had previous experience with this property when it was in its premium, when it was just built as an equestrian centre. It didn't go too well then. It is in the middle of nowhere, and you really can't attract horse people to it because they head down south normally, and we don't have so many horse people unless they're in Pony Club in this area as well. So the original owner, he leased the shed and the property out, unfortunately, to goat farmers, and they turned it into a goat milking facility. So this shed turned into a permanent place to house the goats. A mainland corporate company come in with it. I was just devastated when I heard this. So when Richard put the offer in and the owner accepted, I was just like, I don't want to be any part of that. But again, I said, I'll come and help with the cleanup. And the more, I don't know, the property itself at the time when we took it over, or the facility, it reminded me of me. It felt cold. It felt stagnant. It felt clinical. It wasn't, there was something with it. As I was doing the cleanup, it wasn't really about the aesthetic appearance of it. It was the energetic appearance. So it felt cold and clinical, but as I spent more time out there, here, and kind of nurtured it with a bit of love, that's where it started to remind me of me. Because the more that I put into it, the more I felt it gave back too. There's something in that energetic movement, but the more nurturing that we made it, the more that I nurtured myself. I don't know, things just started to change. So one day back on the home farm, where we lived in the house, it was about 20 meters away from the actual dairy on that property, and it was about 10 meters away from the main workshop. So we had 4 farms, as I mentioned, by that stage, and that main workshop become the hub of all of those farms. So the equipment would go in there, suppliers would go in there. There was just people coming and going all the time. We had managers on that farm at that point, and we still just lived in it. But I come home from feeding cattle. It was a winter's day somewhere, and come home and I thought, oh, the sun's shining. I'm going to make a coffee. I'm going to take the laptop and I'm going to sit outside in that sun. And this was our home that we'd watched change so much across the course of 20 years while we're trying to build this business and trying to survive and trying to raise a family and watching all of these changes. And I went and sat on the deck, and there were 6 people in the yard. There were 8 dogs. 2 of them were mine. And when I went out to that deck, I had all of those 6 heads swing around and all of the dogs turn up. And I just thought, I just realized that even, I don't know, it just kind of raised this thing in my consciousness that even though I was doing the work, I realized that there was absolutely no room for us to rest in the environment that we created. And I think that there was a really, really powerful moment in that, because we can do all the work on ourselves and we can kind of keep showing up and doing our thing. But if we're living in an environment that doesn't serve our greater good either, that we're constantly on and we're available and we're there for everything, like at night we'd listen, we'd hear a noise and we'd think, oh, did somebody shut, or did they turn the refrigeration on the vat? Because if you don't do that, there's $6,000 worth of milk that goes down the drain. Did somebody turn the irrigator on? I can't hear that pump running. So it was just a constant thing where we couldn't actually knock off from it. So that was another fork in the road moment. And that I think was quite powerful for me, because I'd been out cleaning this facility up and this property, and I'd kind of seen it was really peaceful and it was really nice. Yes, there's probably only 80 people that live here and it rains a lot, but there's peace in there. And that was something that I didn't have in my environment. I was accessing it within, but yeah, so I made a pretty confident decision to back myself, and I made the big call that I've been procrastinating on, but I did it without permission and I did it without guilt. And that next step for me that day was when I was on the laptop, I just went and invested in that equine assisted leadership framework. That for me it's a global certification, but for us as farmers, it was a lot of money. It didn't build me a business. It just gave me this framework. And so I kind of had to start that business from scratch. But it's called to tell my family that we're moving out to a 120-year-old derelict weatherboard house and we're going to be happy.
Oh, yeah. So you be happy, kids.
Yeah. So, but I will say, from that succession of making those decisions, it was like a floodgate opened. It felt like I'd been just quietly humming in the background and manifesting these things and just really looking at what I wanted. When I took action, it wasn't about all the things that I could think up or come up with the solutions that I had here. It was in that action. And for me, it was a succession or a series of incremental things, but those 2 bigger actions, it's like everything that I dreamed up, it just kind of started to come to play for the last 8-10 years. And it was fast, but the key difference is it was effortless. It just felt like it should be. So, and that's how Leading Rein really was birthed. And it was brought to life. So
yeah. So part of that business is running retreats, doing workshops for women in leadership, and using the horses for experiential learning, really. Can we chat about the workshop that I went to?
Yeah, sure.
So that was back in March, and it was called the Women in Leadership Workshop. Yeah?
This is it up on the screen.
Oh, here we
Is
go.
this it?
It's my little reel that I created.
Yeah.
So can you just, in your own words, just explain what that was about And then as you're talking, I'll interject my experience.
Sure. Yeah. So what you attended was a pilot session, Philly, of a component of the signature Women's 3-Day Deep Dive event. It's like an immersion. It's not a retreat because we're not escaping life. We're actually doing really deep work on for women. So the part that you attended was a pilot session of what I was building in the horse workshop framework. So I went and invested in being able to do these equine activities. But what I was noticing from a leadership perspective, women in business perspective, being able to work with teams, there was a little bit of a gap between what I was teaching in the theory and what we were actually actioning out in the arena. And I wanted to bring all of my skills and knowledge together. And so that actual particular pilot program was designed specifically for women and learning about that self-leadership. And it is part of the deep dive, the 3-day event that I run for women. So we have 2 parts of what I do. And it was integrating it in with eDisc, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I guess. But the horses and the part that they bring in, they're just so honest. So we've gone in and done a theory session. We come out to the arena. We kind of
Can I just add even before we get to the horses, just the way that you were describing the space that you cultivated, and it used to be this goat farm or this goat milking place, and then it's like, actually I want it to be very different, and then you cultivated it. When I walked in, because I'm a country girl, so I grew up on a farm, and so I walked in and just environmentally it's like, oh yeah, this is a big shed, but energetically I felt something shift when I walked in. Maybe I also knew, vaguely what the workshop was about. I really had no idea what my experience was going to be. But I remember when we sat down and we all sat around in a circle, and at the start, I can't remember the questions you asked. What keeps you up at night? It's like, who are you? Where are you from? Why did you say yes to coming to the workshop? And there was a question around what kept you up at night. And I didn't know I knew a couple of the women, but most of them complete strangers. And I just felt completely comfortable just to, let the mask down and share something really vulnerable. And afterwards, I'm like, whoa. I mean, I'm a pretty open book these days now because I think there's so much value in that. And it's part of the healing journey that I went on in terms of like being vulnerable with myself and honest with myself. But I was the first one up. And usually if I'm the first one speaking, I'll probably be like, hi, I'm Philly. I'm from Tasmania. I run a health practice, Chris and Philly Functional Medicine, blah, 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 blah. Oh, what keeps me up and out? Oh, like I sleep good these days. And I probably would have waited until other people shared something vulnerable for me to be able to share something vulnerable. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to mention that because there was something special in the air that allowed me to be able to do that right in the first minute. And I was also late.
I love that. I love that you went there because women, however you want to define leadership, we're leading in so many areas in our life. But women who are in responsibility, decision-making roles, running a business, running households, just needing to be a lot of things to other people, there's potentially a lot of that adapting and that performing happening and masks on and off through that as well. And sometimes women just want a break from being it all. And we talk about this break. And I wanted to build something and create something where women who were relied on or women who are heavily in those roles of performance or looking after other people, I wanted a place where they could actually come in and feel like that they could just take the masks off. They could take a bunch of those hats off and just hang them up, slip into something a little bit more comfortable as well, sit down and have somebody or a space that felt like it was authentic, like the conversations were just so meaningful. You're sitting around other women who are driven and purposefully going out and building their lives as well and passionate about what they do. But I want women to feel like they come into that space and the energy feels like somebody has just asked them, how are you? Like, how actually are you? And there's so much power in that.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm
then,
glad you mentioned that.
thank you. Thank you for creating the space. Okay. So then we went out to the horses and we were just thrown in the deep end. You're like, here's some, you had some instructions basically. Like there were different instructions in this equestrian room. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, in the lunchroom.
Yeah. And then it's like, go and interact with the horses. Now, my name, Philippa, actually means lover of horses, but I have always been really scared of horses. So I was very uncomfortable, which I think was the point of like throwing you into the arena, discomfort, chaos, don't know what you're doing, and have a look at what patterns arise.
Absolutely. You've nailed what I create. So I create this environment where there's, it's a simulated, but it's a safe place to put a little bit of pressure on. Because the reason that I put a bit of pressure on and the purpose of it is because those patterns start to pop up when people are experiencing levels of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And part of the framework is making sure that we touch on all learning styles as well. So we have the conversations, we'll have the reading tasks, we'll have the physical action of doing. And the horses just also, not just, it's something that's unspoken, I guess, is that they are, when women are nervous, I'm watching them all self-regulate, and they're just, the horses are helping them, like whether it is just patting them and they're thinking, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. Some people are pushing the horses to get them out of their space as well. But the horses help to take that one step further for us as well. So they don't care about the job titles. They don't care about people's to-do lists or how competent you look with them. Because they do meet you where you are at, and they have the ability to show you what is running underneath you. Like we get under the hood to have a look at those patterns that we're running as well. It's without judgment, which can be really hard to do in the human world as well, in our environment, and without agenda. Their feedback is absolutely non-bias. It comes from in the moment. And I think the key part is with what we do, we can learn about new resources and new tools, but when you get to implement them without it being role-playing or without it being a practice or without it being really uncomfortable, you don't realize at the time, but those tendencies, whether it is people-pleasing or you're trying to control the situation or you're avoiding things or you've got that tension, over-functioning, it will show up how we lead and how we relate to other people. And you cannot force a 500-kilo animal to follow your lead.
Yeah.
Unless they feel trust, certainty, and safety.
Yeah.
So they're not keeping score, but they will definitely reflect what's going on for you. And I think if we look at that from a leadership capacity as well, as humans, we do go through life asking 3 unspoken questions that, as I just mentioned, they parallel to how herds navigate the herd dynamics, and they do assess that leadership capabilities within that mob as well. And those 3 questions are, can I trust you? Are you committed to excellence, which means, are you actually any good at what you say you do? And do you care about me as well? And the thing is that trust, commitment, and care, it can look very different for everyone as well. And we all have our own flavors and our own versions of what that means. But when you take time to look at what trust means for you first, because it is like the air hostess protocol, you do put that oxygen mask on first. Same principles apply in life, in love, in leadership as well. And then you ask the question, what does care feel like for them? And what does excellence mean in their world? And what does real connection mean? Because that's when you build that trust, and that's when you build the rapport as well with yourself first. And the confidence starts to shine through after that. And you know that you've kind of hit that point, because that's when in those conversations, and horses will say it in their own language as well, I feel you get me, or I feel like you're a lot like me. Those sorts of things will start to pop out. And that's when you know that you've kind of truly entered that world, and that is where the shifts will start to happen. So you had a taster into that 3-day deep dive, Philly.
Yeah.
so fun. It can also be confronting, but it is really liberating too, because women just start to reconnect back with parts of themselves that they've probably either hidden or they've hardened or they've forgotten as well. So I call it the instant performance review.
What I noticed the first time when I think that a task was get a comb or a brush, groom your horse. And there were like 10 different ones that you could choose from. And so already, like this is, and then after we were with the horses, we did some reflection on this, and then I'm like, oh, these were the patterns that showed up. So I'm like, which one is going to be best for the horse? Does the horse like them? Is there one that it will like better? So I just grabbed one, and I remember I was brushing one of the horses and I'm looking at its eyes. I think you said if there's more white in the eye, then they're a bit stressed, dysregulated. And I'm like, the horse has white in the eye. Maybe this is the wrong brush. Have I done it right? And there was something else that showed up. Oh, the horse kept looking back at me and not happy. Like it wasn't happy with me. Oh. And so anyway, some patterns that were showing up, and maybe this we can talk about the e-disc now as the last part of today's convo, was this pattern of I need to get it right. I need to get it right. I need to get it right. And it was interesting talking to the other ladies. Like I remember there was another lady in our group, Sarah, who was running more of the kind of like the people pleasing patterns where it's like, oh, I just had to make sure that everyone else was right and happy. And there were just, it was so interesting how everyone had a different experience with the horse.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we roll that into e-disc, I think what comes up is that we think we know who we are. Until we don't. And I think I've heard you say this before, Chris, on some of your things. Nothing's a problem until it's a problem. That is a really key part to kind of consider, because in every family, in every team, in every workplace or a community, there seems to be these unspoken rules, and I call them hidden agreements. Some people call them truths. And they seem to be those unwritten ground rules. No one really questions them, but everyone seems to follow them. And they're things like, don't talk about that. Don't be too much. We've always done things this way. Don't rock the boat. Or in farming world, it is what it is. Hopefully the listeners are nodding along to this. So I'm not blaming or finger pointing here, but these are the patterns that shape how we speak up or how we don't even speak up, and how we relate to others and how we see ourselves, because it's not just happening around us, that those patterns are happening within us. And we have those unconscious strategies that we've picked up. We've probably been handed along the way as well. And yeah, they've served the purpose, but that's why we kind of need to explore how we are showing up and how we naturally are underneath, because this is where burnout can play as well. Because the thing is, if you don't recognize it, you'll always keep doing the same thing without knowing what's next. But once you start to kind of notice it, you can understand it and you can be more compassionate with it as well. And I think with me rolling back into e-disc as well, and why I kind of have brought that tool into the work that I do. So I'm an e-disc practitioner for people. Have you heard of it before, Philly, before you came in?
I had heard of disc, but e-disc is a bit different. Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. So disc is really built in the corporate sense. It's somewhere that they play quite heavily as well for recruitment and things like that. But e-disc is a tool it's just so powerful, because it plays out two parts. It's not just the personality. It doesn't measure just a personality, and some people can get caught in the labels of that. That's who I am. It measures your natural style, which is your personality, but it also measures your learned responses and how you perceive that you need to be. And when I'm hearing you speak, you're talking about the horse. Oh, he doesn't like that, or he's not, he doesn't like that, he's not happy, those sorts of things. That's hypervigilance coming back up and dismissing your needs in that process as well. So with the e-disc tool, I provide for the women at the 3-day deep dive. It's a 20-page report
and it is all about them and their individual way of being. But the best part is the second part to the measure is it's showing how they believe and perceive that they need to be in their environment. And I think there's such a key component in that, because you can have a natural way of being. I have explained this in my own life journey as well. I can milk the cows, I can do the admin, I can do all of those things, but it's sucking the life out of me, but I didn't have anything to measure it on. This tool helps show us how far we're adapting, and are we adapting into the point of burnout? Or are we adapting to the point that we're just hitting those thresholds and those comfort zones of ourselves, showing where that point is, and using that as a reference point as well to teach us how to resourcefully expand and grow and stretch our comfort zones, rather than jumping clean off the cliff and just saying that didn't work for me. Because I feel like that's a key part. People say, I've tried everything. But if they haven't actually looked and measured or found a way, a tool or a resource, but I think the key part is the language. If they don't have a language to articulate how they feel or what they need or what their strengths are, you can go into the hole of externally seeking your value. And that's where we lose ourselves as well.
Yeah. And or self-judgment, where it's just like, oh, this thing that I do, I hate it. Why do I do it? Blah, 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 blah. But when there's understanding around why and where it came from, and also like it is you, but it isn't you. And you can also, something that you said, I'm not sure if you actually talked about the 4 discs. Can you read them? You've just pulled them up. Dominance. Is this dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness? Is that it?
Yeah. There's different languages for it. There's a lot of different flavors of the disc, but it is based on the work of Carl Jung and even before then. And it is literally just giving us some ideas of what people's areas that are their natural strengths, their natural energetic way of being. So they're the things that light them up, the things that they find effortless. And having that quadrant shows us on the polar opposite. If we were, say, for instance, where somebody, I think I use the example in the workshop, if you were a C-style energy, you're very accurate. You are like a precision type person. You like to know the ins and outs of things before you do things. You also like historical data on those sorts of things. You don't just jump in and do that stuff. Mm-hmm. But if you were to be like a free range I style, which is such an energetic, highly driven, loves all of the people, I think about people in cafes that love to have that human connection with absolutely everyone, not just specific people, but they just love that human interaction, and that's what lights them up. Doesn't necessarily light up somebody that is compliant or somebody that loves the data. So you could see instantly, you go and put a C-style energy into a cafe, they'd need a nap by lunchtime, because we've just completely gone so far between their energetic spread, and keeping them in there is not sustainable.
Yeah. Yes. I think, well, the pattern that was showing up with the horses was the compliant. It's like the right thing. Is this right? Am I doing it right? But also very data driven. And then the opposite of that is more, did you call it the peacock? It's kind of like the, it's like, look at me.
Yeah. I don't know anyone like that.
No, I don't know that. So he's kind of draining for me if I have that too much.
But that's the thing, is that it's actually they can be so complementary.
Yeah, we're opposites in every single personality type quiz. Yeah,
tallness.
Oh yeah, and physicality. What I loved, something that you said when you were talking about disc in the workshop was, I don't know if you use the word goal, but the goal is to be a chameleon. So it's actually like you can move through all of the parts. You can hold space for all of them when and as you want to or need to. So rather than getting stuck in just, like if I was only stuck in the data, it's like, whoa. And I have been in the past. I ran that pattern and that caused burnout because I was too dominant in that, as opposed to now I can see as I look at those 4 quadrants, it's like, oh yeah, like I can tap into these other parts. Too many social things, I will get drained. But like I can be there and I can have fun and I can, tell a joke and maybe even, storyteller, that type of thing. but being able to move through those.
Yeah. And I think the key with the chameleon is to be a resourceful chameleon, because we can be chameleons and put those masks on, but it's how long are we keeping them on, and are they to the greater good of ourselves, or are we just giving access to everything else, not really thinking about that? So a resourceful chameleon, I call it resourceful resilience, Philly, because we can be on and we can be strong. And this is something, it is a key topic that I talk about in the rural space as well, is that we can be so strong and we can be so stoic in our industry, but resilience isn't meant to be something that's permanent. It's not something that we're meant to stay in. We're actually meant to come back and regulate ourselves as well. So when you know where you innately sit, where your natural energy sits, where it's the least effortless for you, go out and stretch and do those things. Exactly what you said. You can go and be social, but you also need that introvert time to rest and recalibrate and recuperate. And when I bring it back to language, when we don't have a language for that, that's when somebody else can put their own map on us and tell us what we are. You always give up, Melissa. Maybe I do in a world that doesn't serve me. But in a world that serves me, I can get up every single day and I can speak about this every single day, and I can work with my horses every single day if I wanted to, because I know the work that I'm doing lights me up. And sometimes we can get a little bit caught up in expectations. Versus asking the question, what really lights you up?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a beautiful place to finish off the conversation. Oh, thank you so much. This has been awesome. If people want to learn more about you don't call it retreats, or do you? The 3-day deep dive immersion, I like that. The workshops, the work that you're doing with leaders, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website that's leadingrein.com.au.
Awesome.
Website and take a look there. There's a page for the deep dive immersions, and I don't call it a retreat because women aren't. It's not you're not running away from your life. You're not escaping the life that you've built. You're actually recreating it, and you're recalibrating yourself. You're getting out of that environment that you are used to running those strategies, and you're bringing your whole self, the vulnerable whole self. So there's the page for the deep dive. There's a page for the team and culture development, where I'm working with businesses and teams and leaders coming through. And also on there, Philly, on my website, I think it's in the free resources, you can access Beyond Balance, which is 5 tips to align your life
awesome.
to what truly matters to you. And
awesome.
That's a guide for women to avoid burnout.
I love that. Thank you. We'll make sure we put that link in the show notes. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. My experiences of you have always been awesome. And yeah, I'm just so excited for more people to learn about themselves and their patterns. But yeah, there was something really special about working with the horses too that is very different to anything else that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you came along and kind of brought your whole self to that event as well. And Chris, who knows, hopefully we'll run some deep dive immersion for men in the future.
That'd be cool. Just grab the big war horses so we don't hurt the poor things.
No, we didn't ever sit on them.
Yeah, what are the draft horse? We need a couple of draft horses for me.
You'll be fine. Actually, one little thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the workshop, because we had to lead the horses and the horse didn't want to budge for me the first time. But then after kind of like regulating and like finding my confidence, it did. But I actually found it easier to lead the horse when I was blindfolded and one of the other ladies was telling me where to go. And I don't know, that was super interesting.
Oh.
So you don't actually sit on the horses, but you would be interacting with them.
Oh, yeah. Lucky horses.
It was almost like, oh, good. I don't have to think about anything. I'll just follow this woman's voice that I trust.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Interesting.
And I think that was a reflection actually, I do remember having a conversation with another lady there. And I was like, yeah, well, that's interesting. I'm kind of feeling like that at the moment. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just say, Chris, You make all the decisions.
I'll be like, let's hire somebody.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this podcast. Thanks, Mel, again for jumping on. Did you say this was your first podcast?
Yay!
Special. Nice. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Hope you have the best week ever, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.
Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.